Hello, my dear sweet souls, my fellow divine feminines and divine masculines. Welcome to Soul Love. Welcome to this video. I'm Mafalda, and today I will be diving into a topic that's both delicate and important. And that is the difference between narcissistic abuse, trauma bonding, and the twin flame connection and the twin flame awakening. So, without further ado, why do I feel this is so relevant? Why do I feel this is so important to discuss, even if this is not the most glamorous or the sexiest topic of all? I do feel like it will be helpful for those of you on the journey that may have found yourselves facing this question, facing this dilemma, facing this confusion. That was certainly my case. And also, given the amount of distortion that we already know is out there in the twin flame collective, given the amount of interference that we are the target of, it is important always to speak to this type of issue with integrity and maturity to help people discern whether or not they're really on the twin flame journey, or if they are in a toxic relationship, an abusive dynamic, so that we can all heal and choose to improve our relationships. So I want to begin by saying that it is absolutely natural to question this. Yes, it's true, especially divine masculines. They may exhibit behaviors and attitudes that are quite toxic. They may lash out, they may silence, they may disrespect you, they may become aggressive, they may abandon you, ghost you, they may even, in the most extreme cases, lie and manipulate. And yes, they may still be your counterpart. So it's absolutely natural to ask this question. In fact, just the fact that you are asking this question means that you are coming at this issue from a higher level of consciousness. You're not just throwing the label onto the dynamic or the connection and justifying or excusing that type of behavior. You're really sitting down and wanting to assess what's in front of you so that you can make decisions based in truth and self-love. So I wanted to start by saying that this is in fact a good sign if you are questioning this. Those who tend to use the label to justify or excuse harm or toxicity don't even tend to question, because they're in a state of delusion or looping or fantasy. So questioning and cultivating self-awareness is what helps us dissolve fantasy, dissolve illusion, and get to the truth at the end of the day. Because it's not helpful to anyone to think they're on the twin flame journey when they're not. In fact, they're only causing themselves more harm and perpetuating dynamics that really aren't serving them or helping them rise into their highest potential. So it is true, on the one hand, that divine masculine's behavior may seem or appear narcissistic. And it is also true that even though on a true twin flame journey, their behavior is not narcissistic, it may still very well be toxic. It is trauma-driven, fear-driven. It's driven by subconscious wounding, and it can absolutely be toxic, disrespectful, and there is no excuse for it, whether it's a twin dynamic or not. And that's where the maturity that I was talking about really comes in, and needing to sit with this with with the gravitas that it requires, let's say. So from a 3D level of perspective, we may encounter certain behaviors on the part of our twin that are disrespectful and toxic. They're not narcissistic, and yet they are indicative of something much deeper. And this is where multi-dimensional awareness is necessary on the twin flame journey, and we will get to that. So why is it that it may feel like narcissism, yet it's not? Well, one of the steps in any narcissistic type of relationship or cycle is the love bombing stage, which happens at the beginning. And this stage may appear like the bubble love phase that happens in a twin flame connection and dynamic. It is very intense. You're shut up into unconditional love. Now, between monadic twins, this is genuine. And the twins retreat after that isn't because this phase wasn't real or was faked. It's due to the activation of all their core wounds being brought out to the surface. Whereas in a narcissistic dynamic, love bombing really is the phase in which the narcissistic person fakes the connection and really treats their victim with the utmost care, and they feign their love for the other person, but the intention is to draw them in, to gain trust, and to get them to attach to them. That would be the trauma bonding part of the dynamic, so that when the next stage comes, which would be devaluing, the victim is already attached. They've clung to this other person, and that will make them more likely to not leave and to remain subject to the mechanisms of control and manipulation of the narcissistic person. Eventually comes the phase of discarding, which would be the abandonment stage, and then it starts all over again. So these stages, they may resemble, right, the twin flame connection, because there's an initial stage that's just a bubble love, and then they retreat upon soul recognition. So that's why it may seem the same, right? Another reason is the energetic intensity of the connection. So twin flame connections are extremely intense. Soul recognition, and to activate our soul's highest blueprint, even if we're not able to sustain it right then and there because there's too much distortion and too much karmic entanglement, it gets activated, it gets brought to the surface. That is extremely intense for the whole system to deal with, the mind, the body, the spirit. When that happens, there is an intensity to a narcissistic connection or a toxic relationship, but that comes from trauma bonding. It comes from the familiarity of our original core wounds being activated. So when we meet a narcissistic person, they will trigger all our rejection, abandonment, betrayal wounds through their actions. And even if our mind takes longer to pick up on it, our body and our energy field will pick up on it instantly. And that's why we may experience waves of energetic intensity. In fact, it's so similar that sometimes our divine masculines or our matrix twins, our counterpart, they may be confusing the connection for something like that because they feel it's so dangerous and it's so intense. And we may even be in the position of knowing it's not that, and they may think, no, this must be toxic. I need to run away from this because it's so intense. So the intensity absolutely may lead us to think this may be a narcissistic or at least a toxic connection. And the ups and downs of a narcissistic bond may also resemble the push and pull dynamic. Of course, the divine masculine or the matrix twin may exhibit a lot of avoidant behaviors and avoidant tendencies, and narcissistic individuals or individuals with narcissistic tendencies may also exhibit that type of avoidant behavior of not wanting to take responsibility, of projecting, of blaming. So again, you can see why that may be similar. So why is it that it's not when it comes to a monadic twin flame connection, even though it looks so similar? And again, why it's important to discern and to be well informed so that you're not running the risk of justifying narcissistic abuse in your life because you think it's a twin flame connection, or even justifying your twin's disrespectful behavior because you know they're your twin. You still need to set boundaries, even if it's your twin or not, and they're acting in ways that are harmful, abusive, toxic. You have to set boundaries either way. Either way, this is a journey, or a spiritual journey, whether it's a twin flame journey or not, is a journey of self-love, self-respect, which is what allows us to anchor unity consciousness, hence to come into our spiritual maturity and assist the planet birth, co-create, and operate from a Christic, Sophianic level of consciousness here on Earth. So that's always going to entail setting boundaries, learning self-respect, and not allowing others to walk all over us or to disrespect us due to our own templates of and wounds of unworthiness. So what is it that's really driving this behavior when it is our divine masculine or our counterpart, the matrix twin? If it's not narcissism, what is it, and why do they act in these ways that are so unconscious? Well, trauma, right? When we look at narcissism, what is narcissism at the end of the day? It is actually in part also caused by trauma. On other levels, we do also have energetic interference and, of course, non-player characters. And we will get into that perhaps later in this video or in another video. But from a purely psychological, emotional perspective, narcissism is a complete lack of a sense of self. It's an emptiness inside due to a severe fragmentation of the psyche. So narcissistic people tend to feel very empty inside, and they have a lot of self-hatred and a lot of shame and a lot of insecurity. And in order to cover up for all of that, what they need is extreme amounts of external validation. So people around them and the relationships around them just become a means to obtain what is called narcissistic supply. So they don't cultivate relationships due to genuine love and care and affection because they lack that sense of empathy. They can't feel themselves, so therefore they cannot sense or feel others. So their relationships become transactional, and they maintain relationships due to what they can obtain or get out of the other person. So I need to feel good about myself, and I need you to fulfill this role in my life to make me feel good about myself. So they use other people to cover up this void. They cannot self-source. They don't access love within themselves. And so they live from a very superficial standpoint. And it's all about managing other people's perception of them so that people don't find out that they do have this void. They lack empathy, and they can be ruthless in wanting to, in how they pursue what they want. So if they need something from you, they will stop at nothing to get it. And they don't have the level of empathy and self-awareness to stop themselves from doing something that may harm somebody else. So when it comes to divine masculine's toxic behavior, it's actually driven also by the fragmentation of the psyche, but not due to this emptiness or this lack of empathy. It's due to trauma. And so their protective and self-defense mechanisms get activated, and they push away and they blame and they project because their ego is terrified. It's terrified of having to address all the places in which they feel unworthy and ashamed. So they act from their trauma and they act from their shadow. And especially if they are not skilled at doing shadow work, this will look very unconscious. It may be very toxic. And it's also driven by past life trauma, childhood trauma, collective masculine trauma. So the fear of losing control, the distortion of domination and love, the beliefs around love being control and not knowing how to love except through domination. And this connection, of course, causes them to lose control completely. And so they then interpret it as dangerous, and they have these subconscious reactions that come from wounding. Their nervous systems are usually highly dysregulated, so they tend to respond with fight, flight, or freeze responses, all three of them, as do we. So that's really what's driving the behavior. It's not really that they are intentionally using you or intentionally wanting to feed off you, although, of course, because of the unconsciousness of their behaviors, that may happen, but that's not the intention. The search for narcissistic supply isn't what's driving their behavior. What's driving their behavior is the fear of getting hurt again, the fear of hurting you again. It's their unconscious fight or flight, right? And their unconscious trauma responses that are being triggered left and right. Now, as I really want to reiterate this, because I want this to be a video that really speaks in a grounded, mature way. None of this is an excuse for the way they treat us. None of it. Understanding from a monadic level perspective what type of trauma is getting triggered, the different layers of it, doesn't mean it's okay for the divine masculine or the matrix twin to treat us in disrespectful ways. You can understand and unconditionally love someone and yet say, I will not tolerate this behavior. This is unacceptable. I know you're not narcissistic and you're not being driven by this desire to fulfill your selfish needs, right? Like, and again, even though it may appear that way, you're being driven through fear and self-protection and trauma and ultimately self-sabotage, right? But you still need to heal. You still need to address those wounds and do the inner work and exit all this karmic entanglement. So this video isn't meant to justify or excuse any of that. And it's not to encourage divine feminines or spiritual twins to forgive too easily either. Yes, this is a path of forgiveness, but you don't allow someone to step all over you time and time again without drawing those boundaries, because that's not love. And that's also not spiritual maturity and growth. So let's look at let's go in even deeper now from a monadic and multidimensional perspective. Okay, so we were looking at trauma and how the divine masculine's behavior is driven by trauma. Well, this trauma is so much more complex than we may even imagine. Also, depending on your soul history, your soul origin, your experiences on Earth and in other star systems, your counterpart and you may be very, very deeply wounded. And this may be reflected in very unconscious toxic behaviors. And it's important to understand that especially this level of high frequency union, We have been the target of a lot of interference. We've participated and volunteered to participate in so many spiritual wars, galactic wars, here on Earth as well, mission level endeavors that we've undertaken that were high risk. And that has left us, again, with profound wounds, profound entanglements that will come out unconsciously. That's why I did the series on shadow work, because it's intense when it all gets pushed out into the field to be addressed. And then, of course, due to the quantum energetic connection between twins, it is just wild how the field really brings in, through one another's behavior and other people's behavior, all the little wounds and entanglements and beliefs and all the shame and the fear, it all, how it all brings it to the surface for us to address. And that's where all this behavior, all these behaviors, these unconscious behaviors come from, when in fact they are a sign that you may either be scared of losing each other. When I'm talking about past life trauma, we're talking about lifetimes and lifetimes of losing each other, of seeing one another be murdered in front of your eyes, of torture, of being war prisoners, and all that gets pushed out. So when they project, when they blame, it's running away from that level of pain that looking into your eyes represents, that your presence represents that awakening of realizing the stakes, of realizing everything that's been happening and what's really been driving everything behind the scenes, and all their carefully curated egoic structures that were built on this trauma, also all that dissolution. And so it's much easier for the ego to project and blame onto you, and that's what leads them to treat you that way, than it is to do the work. And again, it's also by design, because your own wounds are getting triggered, being abandoned, being silenced, right? Your childhood wounds and your past life wounds as well. So you can see how profound this all is. And hopefully these explanations will help you understand the behavior, but also give you the confidence to take the necessary steps to set boundaries where it's needed, and to not excuse the behavior. And of course, if you do find yourself in a narcissistic relationship, to understand that this is a call to deeper self-love and self-respect, to let go of any places where you've been playing small and thinking that you're not worthy of respect and love and of healthy relationships. So let's get to the practical part of this video, how to discern. How to discern. We've spoken about a few of the differences, but the key difference is the main vital difference is the one that's actually going to help you discern. And here it is. Narcissistic individuals they exhibit and they experience a certain level of satisfaction when they manage to get what they want, and that is supply. When they manage to get your attention, when they manage to generate emotional chaos and they feed off of it, they feed off of your emotional reactions, they have a satisfaction because they're a level of satisfaction because they're getting what they want. When it comes to our twin flame, that level of satisfaction isn't there. Our twin is not a monster. They do have empathy, and they are not, they don't feel happy. In fact, they feel tremendous amounts of guilt and shame underneath their facade of casual, nonchalant attitude. But they actually many times pull away and reject you because they don't want to hurt you further. And they're not stable enough to engage in a relationship in the physical realm. And so they'd rather retreat, they'd rather abandon, and they don't yet have the maturity to be able to address this directly or to express their feelings in a mature way. But you will absolutely feel an underlying unconditional love that is always there. They take no pleasure in hurting you, even if sometimes they do. That's the main difference. And you can watch out for this in narcissistic individuals, because usually you'll identify the smirk. Narcissistic individuals tend to smirk when they're manipulating you, or when they feel like they're succeeding at their gaslighting. That doesn't happen with twin flames. And so twins may exhibit even extreme behavior like lying and manipulation, but they are in a level of denial that they don't realize how much they're hurting you. They think they're doing the right thing. Whereas narcissistic individuals, they're master liars and manipulators, but on some level, it's not like they're all malignant narcissists in the sense that they're mapping out and strategizing the different ways they're going to harm another person. But all of them are aware on some level or to some extent that their behavior isn't in integrity, and it's not caring, and that they're doing something that harms another. They just can't help themselves, because of course they don't realize that they could in fact source all that love and validation and worthiness from within. They don't know how to operate in a different way. They're wired to seek for that validation and that love outside of themselves. And of course, because it's empty, because it's been extracted, it'll just make them feel emptier, which gets them started on this whole cycle of looking for it outside of themselves again. So another marker is the twin flame connection inspires growth over time, no matter how painful it is. You may still be in those initial stages of separation, living through profound ego death, living through the dark night of the soul in immense pain and suffering. Even then, even if you feel like you're stuck, like nothing is ever moving forward, it's always pushing you to grow, to deepen your connection with God, to find out more about who you are, why you're here, what you came here to do. So it's a forward moving journey. The twin flame journey keeps moving you along. You keep growing, even if it's painful. Within a trauma bonded narcissistic relationship, you're not going to feel that. You're going to feel ever more depleted, ever more distant from your life's purpose. On a twin flame journey, even if you're not able to come into mission alignment on day one, or even if it takes you some time to get there, you start to see it. You start to see that you're here for more, and you start to slowly, within what's possible, taking steps toward that. Within a narcissistic connection, you actually feel like you're going further and further away from your sense of purpose. You feel more and more depleted. You lose motivation. You lose inspiration. All your energy is being spent on managing this person's reactions, walking on eggshells, overthinking, questioning yourself, and you're a shadow. You're a shadow of yourself. So that's massive too. A twin flame connection, even if it's painful, and even if they are disrespecting you, or even if they're silent in the 3D, you will feel like you're growing. You will feel like you're moving forward. Even if you're losing connections or relationships, or even if your life is collapsing, you know that it's doing so because you're coming closer to your authentic self. So that's massive. And the energetic markers that may help you identify in what type of a situation you're in are, for twin flames, telepathic communication, multidimensional awareness, 5D activations, awakening of spiritual and psychic abilities and gifts, signs and synchronicities through the roof. What else? expansion of your level of awareness and consciousness. Whereas the energetic markers for a toxic or narcissistic type relationship is depletion, exhaustion, and emotional fatigue that doesn't go away, that only gets worse with time. Whereas with twins, of course you'll have moments of fatigue and exhaustion, but it'll come more in waves and it'll be more ups and downs. When it comes to a narcissistic relationship, you feel completely depleted. You feel used. You feel like a shadow of yourself. You're overthinking. You're in your mind constantly. And you feel unworthy, and you feel stuck. You don't feel a sense of purpose. I think these are good. Do let me know if you have any questions about this topic. If you want me to go deeper into it, I'd be happy to do so. I think at the end of the day, the takeaway message and what I want you to leave today's video with is knowing that whatever path you're on, the spiritual journey is a journey of empowerment. It's a journey of sovereignty. It will always be about coming into deeper self-love. It'll always be about healing from trauma. And so at the end of the day, a narcissistic relationship or a bond with a narcissistic type person will always fade away when you focus on that, when you focus on your growth. Whereas a twin flame bond, it does not fade away with time. It only gets stronger and purer. And the unconditional love that binds you only becomes more evident and apparent. A narcissistic relationship, when you heal, will fall away. It will become unsustainable in a field that's anchored in self-love and empowerment. So you can never go wrong when you invest in your own healing, when you do shadow work, when you seek assistance. Again, if this is something that you feel is important for me to address in greater depth or more detail, do let me know. And I also thank you for the comments, some comments that were left on the channel that actually also inspired me to do this video. And if you do want assistance in healing from trauma, if you want help to identify whether you're in a narcissistic relationship or a twin flame connection, don't hesitate to reach out. And if you're in the thick of shadow work as well, don't hesitate to reach out. If you want that one-to-one level support, you can check out my offerings and my sessions. All my details are below. Also, my quantum healing transmissions, if that's something that you're also interested in. And of course, do like and subscribe and share with your fellow divine feminines and divine masculines if you found this video useful. I really hope to grow this community over time and to continue to provide quality content that's based in truth and integrity. So if you guys could help me out with that, I would very, very much appreciate it. So I will be diving deeper into nervous system work because that's such a big component of this, and healing from narcissistic abuse as well. And this is such a big part of the work that I do, of the work that I did personally on my journey due to the trauma that I was subjected to as a child. So yes, just keep focusing on your own growth. Don't hesitate to reach out if you need me, and I will see you very soon in the next one. I want to keep coming with more videos, and I will. It's such a delight to come and assist fellow twins. What a magnificent journey. We're here embodying such high levels of consciousness. It just transforms our whole experience on this planet when we're anchoring soul alignment and soul embodiment. So do keep going. You are not alone. This is a glorious journey. I wish you a lovely, lovely day, and I send you all a big, big hug. I love you so much.